So we move on to the next session, and this is our session 4 for today. Scaling Technology Adoption, the HIMSS Perspective, that's Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society, HIMSS Perspective. So to chair this session, we have a very dynamic neurosurgeon, but she's also a healthcare administrator and an international healthcare consultant. So you can see how many hats Madam wears. And she's the executive director of Jimcare Hospital, Kannur, Kerala, co-founder and chairperson of the Digital Health India Associates, the executive director and board member of HIMSS Group of Hospitals, Sri Lanka, vice president, Telemedicine Society of India, Kerala State Chapter, formal technical advisor to the Ministry of Health in Djibouti, the former technical expert and knowledge partner, Africa Health Business Symposium, Nairobi, Kenya, and I could go on and on. So who better to chair this session? And we have our speaker, one speaker for this session, Dr. Nitiraj Gandhi, who is the secretary of the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society, and also the associate director of IQVIA South Asia. Dr. Nitiraj has served as a reviewer of HIMSS Global for the past 3 years. He has more than 10 years of experience as a clinician as well as a healthcare management professional across groups such as Reliance, Columbia Asia, and Ernst & Young. He's a mix of both clinician as well as hospital management from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, certified Six Sigma Black Belt, and also a CQPA from ASQ. He holds a fellowship for health technology assessment and the NHL 7 certified professional. So that's our wonderful speaker for next session. Over to you, Dr. Uma, for chairing the session.
Thank you so much, Anne, and a very big thank you to the entire CAHOTECH team for putting together one of the best online sessions that I have seen in the last 2 years. It's extremely well coordinated, and you have a fantastic, selection of all the faculty and very good content. And obviously, I mean, I consider it a privilege to be part of this conference. So coming to the session about scaling technology adoption, we have all already, all of us who are part of this session, the participants and the listeners, we all know that technology and healthcare go hand in hand. There is no healthcare without technology. And last year, more than any other year, has, because of the pandemic, told us, and sort of made us understand the necessity of adoption of digital technology. So now in the last 2 sessions as well, we understood that how digital technology and medtech go hand in hand. Now, digital technology adoption, we just saw in the last, we just heard the last session. The challenges are there, but until and unless these challenges are met with and we figure out methods of creating robust systems on digital solutions and the interfacing of medtech as well as the digital technology, we cannot probably get to the point of digital transformation that we are talking about. We have all been talking about access to healthcare, transparency in healthcare, quality of healthcare. If there is a solution that is going to disrupt and give us all this, it is digital technology. There is no doubt about it. But just talking digital is not enough. To have a robust mechanism, there has to be standards, there has to be models that we have to adopt. I mean, we heard about the challenges that the hospitals have. Many hospitals don't even know what solutions to use. So the knowledge that the users need to have, the end users, when it is the doctors and the senior managements who are the decision makers, then they need to know, what do we mean by EMR? What do we mean by a telehealth ecosystem? What do we mean by creating robust solutions in our hospitals? What do we mean by, our growing together with it? And what do you need to do to make sure that our digital journey is smooth as well as scaling upwards? There is a body of knowledge that we as physicians, we as managers, we as nurses need to know. And I'm going to invite Dr. Nitiraj Gandhi to educate us about some of these initiatives and some things that HIMSS is a proponent of and is a forerunner in this. So Nitiraj, well, over to you.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think the stage is well set. So, I represent HIMSS out here. So just a bit about HIMSS, Health Information Management System Society, founded in the US, and it's a not-for-profit organization with an aim to make sure that use of information technology is meaningful and adds a lot of value to healthcare delivery, as well as, makes patient safety also imperative through use of digital solutions. Now, if I were to get into the next slide, what is our vision and mission? The vision is very clear from 2020. This is the revamped vision to realize the full potential of health potential of every human everywhere. The mission being reforming the global health ecosystem through the power of information and technology. This is the HIMSS team, the board members for India, and I'm privileged to be one. Ours is the only chapter outside of the US, or the first chapter outside the US, which has an independent recognition. Now, let me just go to the topic that Uma ma'am was speaking about, how adoption of digital is very important, the kind of data that we can expect. So if you look at where we stand right now, there's an explosion of data. And when we say explosion of data, the kind of data that we are getting is coming in exabytes, and there are different kind of data structures. There is structured data, unstructured data when it comes to patient-related parameters or anything that gets recorded. Location data, location of a patient within a hospital, within a particular caregiver setting versus their location in the outside the hospital and where they are working from or they're receiving the care from in a remote care setting. That's also coming through, and there's a lot of data there. The different data formats, people are uploading images, people are scanning images. Some of these reports are in a very user-friendly manner or exchange-friendly reports too, with the ideal formats also. Data definitions, the semantic definitions, the technical definitions of any data, data excerpt or metadata at a metadata level. When I say a patient kin, what does that mean? So the definition of these data, a lot of these things come into picture. And as important as digital is, the complexity of digital cannot be ignored thereby. While things, as Umam rightly said, that digital is going to be the next thing to accelerate everything. We have to bear in mind that we have to prepare for it better when we start addressing things. If you were to look at simple numbers, in 2013, there were 153 exabytes of data. Right now, it's 2,314 exabytes as we stand in 2020. And with telemedicine growing, I believe the data would have been, the kind of data that we've been transmitting and using, that's only going to get larger and larger. And basis the telecom penetration also that we've got, now 5G coming into the picture, there's going to be a lot of audio, video that gets exchanged, which makes, makes it imperative that we address the velocity, veracity, and voraciousness of the data. How much of that data can get consumed? How good is the data that needs to be consumed? And how do we address all these needs? I think, with that, I'll hand it back to Uma ma'am to understand if, she has any further observations on the same.
So, Naveen, while we understand there is so much of data explosion and all that happening, if it is possible, can you quickly tell everybody about the HIMSS initiatives on standardizing the levels of EMRs, that people need to know which is the road to go. Right now, people don't know the road to go. So can you just give us an indication of especially when it comes to MRAM and stuff like that?
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely, ma'am. So why are standards important? I'll just probably take a minute to explain that. If we look at the past year and a half, there's been an explosion in terms of usage of telehealth. So two major challenges come in. Providers as well as these independent solutions or independent service vendors who have developed telehealth solutions, they have organized a lot of things which may or may not be compliant, and people for some reason are definitely used to it. Now, when there are so many options and so many ways in which patient data gets recorded and used, we need certain solutions. And our belief at HIMSS is that there are two aspects to it. First is the industry bodies need to come together. Bodies like CII, FICCI, HIMSS, they need to come together and streamline each and every process. Now that we are through the pandemic, or at least towards the fag end, or not really in the middle of the heat of the pandemic, that we need to start responding and streamlining the process. What does a teleconsult mean? How does a tele-ICU episode get recorded? How complete can the data be? Who's authorized to do things? The second bit would be, how and when does the government intervene along with insurers to make sure the mandatory minimum requirements are met? Because on the payer side, what we are seeing is there is always a keenness to make sure that things are friendly for the patients and otherwise. But we also need to get certain minimum data standard sets come into place. Now, in terms of initiatives and in terms of solutions, if I were to look at the standards that ma'am was talking about, so HIMSS comes through with multiple standards. First is the EMR adoption model. It's a 7-stage cycle where, if you look at the Indian market, and I'll put the India perspective only, we don't have any of the hospitals as of now who are at stage 6 or stage 7. And stage 6 and stage 7 would mean that there is continuum of care, there is exhibited documentation for that continuum of care. All caregivers are actually using it and demonstrating the capability that whatever is happening with the patient is available with them, and they're making informed decisions. So that's going to be one major step. If, while all of the hospitals are talking about, advancing technologies, bringing in startups, bringing in new technologies, they need to somehow start streamlining their efforts towards probably at least going for this MRAM adoption and moving towards level 6, if not level 7. There are 3 or 4 hospitals in entire Southeast Asia who have achieved level 7, and that's quite commendable as of now, this year. The second is the analytics maturity adoption model. And this is also important for, hospitals as well as any other healthcare provider. What is the kind of data you're receiving? How do you analyze that data? Because if there is no insight generated from that data, there's hardly anything that you can do about it. So, that's something that HIMSS also supports with the analytics maturity adoption model. The continuity of care model, how do you, make sure that there is interoperability between whatever information gets exchanged. Clinically integrated supply outcomes model, digital imaging adoption model. I believe there were 2 hospitals in India who recently decided to go for this digital imaging adoption model also. So, and similarly, an outpatient EMR adoption model, which can be used by smaller hospitals or clinics, which thereby then brings in some systems. And when we lay this sort of a foundation, and Ayushman Bharat or the National Digital Health Mission, these things become much more easier to implement when all the providers start supporting.
Thank you, Nitiraj. Now, when I look at all these solutions that are available with HIMSS, and I've, as you rightly said, told us that we don't have any MRAM 6 or 7 institute in the country. And frankly, I don't even know whether the institutions are aware of all the models that you have listed over here. In fact, I mean, even the people who adopt digital technology and have EMR working in some form or the other. More importantly, I am also, having discussed with many EMR solution providers, they are also not aware of these solutions and the rating that their models can get. So what is the initiative, or what is the way forward you think either HIMSS should do? One of the things you've said is maybe push from the payer side. But do you think that push from the payer side is the right thing? And this is, it's even open to some of the others who may want to answer. But will it be something like a demand from the patients? Because you know that in NDHM, PHR is, looked at as the destination as to where we want to be. So do you think it is the PHR pull that is going to lead to adoption of some of these, or implementation of some of these solutions, or is it that the payer will push for it?
I'll take a stab at this first. Maybe
What's your
someone
view
else might also
on it?
want to come in. So my view would be,
Sure.
if I can, say quite bluntly, if it comes from the payer side, let's say, the regulations today enforced by GIPSA, when we came in with COVID treatment regulation also, the pricing regulations, once they start coming in from the payer, there is a need as to why people should do it. When it comes from the patient side, while it is much more desirable, we'll also need to appreciate that us being a very diverse country, spreading that information to so many people, and especially from tier 2, tier 3 cities where they're just blindly at times dependent on a doctor or a hospital when they are in acute pain, that becomes a bit difficult. While they might want ideally to have a PHR, but the sensitivity is somehow not there because it doesn't strike them that I need to have this information. Suppose somebody has an appendicitis or a let's say a chest pain or something, the first thing at that point in time is to find a good doctor and not just a hospital. And when when the patient is compelled in a way to think in that manner, it becomes a bit difficult. However, as we've seen with GIPSA, when they started making it mandatory that you need to have an NABH accreditation, you suddenly saw a surge in the number of hospitals, even the smaller size hospitals, that they are doing at least entry level accreditation, if not anything else. And that's why I would say so. But what you're saying also is right, ma'am. If the force, if the if there is a social or a civil society which starts standing up for patient rights and demanding things, then the change will be even more rapid. Yeah, maybe someone wants to come and do it. Ma'am, you're on mute.
So I don't see any questions from the audience, but what my personal view is that if supposing the push is from the payer side, there is the resistance by the end users is more, because it is related to either reduction in payment or penalties which are monetary in nature for not adopting. Whereas when it is from the demand side, which is from the patient side, and if you have the PHRs mandating, and the patient comes to you and asks that, okay, this is the data and you need to put it on my locker, digital locker that I have, then maybe it will be a better solution. What does HIMSS do to ensure that the hospitals which have accreditations of the NABH, like say the CAHO members, and also use an EMR to educate them about these solutions that HIMSS has and which they can look at? Or do you also support in some way, or do you give incentives in some manner?
So at HIMSS, ma'am, all of us being honorary members, because HIMSS is registered as a society in India, not as a formal organization, but a not-for-profit society in India. We do, at times we've done roadshows. We do bring in CIOs together. I think at our annual conference, at least we have 20 to 25 CIOs and an equal number of CXOs who come in. So our attempt always is to educate them to, somehow try and get them to appreciate the importance of this. The only challenge that we've seen across this is probably everyone is waiting for who else is going to do it. So that's becoming more of a challenge for us, that probably there needs to be one hospital which decides that I'm going to do it irrespective of whether the next hospital in the city or somebody who I think of as a peer or a competitor has done it or not. So that's how I would look at it. And at HIMSS, we do definitely support people at different levels. So if it is individuals or CIOs, we help them with certifications like CP-HIMSS or CA-HIMSS, which enable them to take up projects not just in India but abroad also. We definitely assist them in being prepared for MRAM or AMAM. So that's always, the doors are always open if anyone wants to do that. And we would really appreciate if CAHO can help us out in terms of synergizing the efforts.
So there is a question from Mr. Ravinder Singh Saini, who wants to know whether we can think of standardizing data creation by hospital so that the needs come down by cutting down extra data. So it's like at least you have the basic minimum data set, which is definitely available,
Yes.
and the riffraff is avoided. So
Yes.
what is your view on that?
Pretty interesting question, ma'am. And as far as I'm aware, I think NABH has also come up with now the digital health standards. And some of these steps are, towards that, at least have a minimum data set kind of standard, so that everyone or every hospital at least voluntarily starts reporting on these things, especially if they want that digital health accreditation for them.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us about how many hospitals have taken at least the MRAM model journey? And I mean, I know of Max as MRAM 5, but that's been quite a few years. In fact, they've had. After that, how many institutions have gone on this journey?
So the pioneers of this were, as you rightly said, ma'am, Max and Apollo. And I think in 2014, I believe, Max reached a level 6, level 5 or 6, somewhere, if I'm not
yeah, 6, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Max reached level 6, and Apollo reached a similar level the next year. But after that, they've not, really pursued renewing the the accreditation from from HIMSS. There is interest from groups like BM Master. I'm sure about that. I think 2020, just before COVID hit us, they were very interested in doing that. And I believe as soon as people start realizing the value of data, a case in point would be American Institute of Oncology. If you look at it from a purely investment point of view, a lot of the valuation was also done on the data they had, the quality of data they had in terms of oncology, which makes it very valuable. So I think once that value sets in, people see a return on investment, they'll again come back to this. It's more of a chicken and egg situation for us too. If we have a certain pool of hospitals, it's easier for us to bargain with the Singapore team and push them to bring in the surveyors out here. For a single hospital, it becomes a bit more costly because they're also unsure whether the momentum can be sustained. But if from platforms like CAHO, we can get 4 or 5 major hospitals together, I'm pretty sure it will be cost effective and efficient both.
I think, yeah, I mean, my view is that it is necessary to build a consortium of some kind to be able to bring this to the actual fruition of, the objectives of HIMSS, as well as you said, validation of data. The problems that we face is data validation mechanism is, I mean, nearly non-existent. Okay, we don't know what people are entering and how does it get validated. So there needs to be something to, and for that matter, Ravinder Singh Saini's question is very pertinent, that when you have at least a basic minimum data set, and that some organization is looking at the validity of it, then only it can. Because right now, I think the task is enormous, and we perhaps do not even have the AI solutions that will help us for a quick validation, whether the diagnosis entered is correct and it matches with the symptoms. I mean, just a very basic thing. If we have some 4 or 5 basic questions that get answered, then even if you don't do the MRAM 6 or 7, you have a certain validation that puts you on a path of, let's say, giving more credibility, and whether it is to do with valuation of the organization or it is to add to the NABH accreditation standards, we have to look at something so that the improvement of data entry can be managed in the organizations, because I think data entry is a major challenge in almost all hospitals.
True, ma'am. I couldn't agree more with you. Yeah.
Sam, can I invite you for any comments that you might have?
Hey, thanks, Oma. I think this was interesting. So I actually agree with you. I think most people in our industry, most of the startups we interact with, most of the CIOs and IT heads don't actually know that these resources exist. One. I think the other thing is with the new NHA digital strategy, how much of this is deeply relevant in a world that's effectively changing, because the India scale factor is very different. So I think that's the perspective I think I'm grappling with personally. But I will tell you one thing, I wouldn't wait for, I mean, I'm part of CII and FICCI and many of the bodies we talk about. I wouldn't wait for them to come and popularize much of these standards. I think at the end of the day, HIMSS has to make the effort in India by spending a lot more time educating the customer, the end user, I think, one. And number two, the people along that journey. It's like NABH, right? NABH, it took the hospitals to educate the customers that safety standards, that standardization of care, that patient safety was important by putting those charters up in every room. And it wasn't so much, I mean, forgive me if any QCI member is participating, but the reality is it wasn't NABH or QCI that did that, right? I think Dr. Gyani made a big effort at the start, but I think actually it's the hospitals who then went to the customers to educate them backwards. I think at the end of the day, you need the customer to drag the best benefit of technology adoption, of leveraging tech, of using common standards there. Otherwise, it becomes a B2B standards discussion, which I don't think is, I mean, in a place like India with so many different states, users, institutes, it doesn't become an easy solution. Thanks.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, Sam, very rightly put. And I think the end user education in healthcare related matters is more complex than, you know, simply canceling a cab on Ola or, you know, giving a review on Swiggy for what food you have entered. You know, that's a much more easier task to do. People have started doing it. Believe me, it will happen in healthcare, but the journey is very, very complex. And I think people are also, they're not educated enough, and self-care is also not so well prevalent. So therefore, those challenges, we are the providers of healthcare, and we have a large responsibility to make sure that on both sides, the technology as well as the healthcare delivery meet on a common ground. So whereas the end users will take time to learn whatever needs to be done and how they have to demand, because they need to demand, they need to know what they have to demand. That knowledge is still deficient. So till that level happens, the technology partners and the healthcare delivery organizations need to come together. Now, if you look at NDHM, how many healthcare providers, how many doctors and hospitals even know that there is something called NDHM? They don't. Okay, and we will be, expected to deliver based on NDHM guidelines and the rules and the protocols 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. People don't know. So until and unless the end user or the major stakeholder in healthcare, 50% is doctor, 50% is patient. That's how I look at it. And they get bridged by the technology. So if 50% of the doctors are not educated, we will not be able to do digital transformation successfully. So it'll remain a pipe dream, and it might, end up nowhere. So I think organizations like HIMSS and CAHO, in my view, should actually come together to, make an effort, because people don't see that, okay, HIMSS does this much in the US or in any other country abroad. What is the relevance to India? Is it going to be relevant to India? Is it meaningful? And if it is meaningful, then how do hospitals benefit from it? And if there has to be a cost arbitrage by getting more users and stakeholders in it, I think that needs to be done. So I want you to, although you were just talking mostly on the digital technology, but I want you to touch on the medtech space. What is HIMSS, if at all, doing on standardization of devices in the medtech space?
So on the medtech
explosion that has happened. In the last 1 year, we've also seen an explosion on the devices that are coming to the market.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So on the medtech space, at least in our capacity, what we've done is we have collaborated with organizations like NASSCOM, some of these startup accelerators, to make sure that when people are developing medtech, they are actually solving the right use cases. So if you're telling me that I'm doing remote monitoring, then I need evidence that the technology that you're using, is it FDA compliant? Is it going to be FDA compliant? Plus, in which area is this remote monitoring within a hospital, where you're solving the problem at the nursing station, thereby improving the efficiency of nurses? Is it remote monitoring at care, at home, or remote monitoring in a primary health center? So trying to define these use cases and then qualifying the right vendors so that they get support. And then once These vendors are qualified by, say, NASSCOM or some other, startup accelerator. We act as knowledge partners. So as and when they require support on the regulations that may come in, the kind of patients they'll encounter, the kind of questions hospitals are looking to solve, we help and guide them to achieve it.
So thank you very much, and thank you CAHOTECH once again, and thank you Dr. Agarwal, Sam, and the whole team